I did. I've always wanted to be involved in agriculture and was growing up at home with cattle and hay. But when I got down here and saw these beautiful fields, man, I was in love again. And I've been here ever since. And it's not paradise. We get our hurricanes in here and problems like that, but you can't run from Mother Nature. If you're up in the Northeast right now, you're snowed in and freezing cold, and here we are, could be in shirt sleeves and shorts right now. So there are advantages and disadvantages everywhere, but normally we get our annual average rainfall is about 54 inches. Around here we're 25 inches behind. Well, we've started a new year, so we started a new slate, but we ended up 2011 25 inches behind, so we got roughly half of the rainfall that we normally get in a year. And that's had a toll on everything from the crops to the pasture, livestock. A lot of people had to sell cattle because they didn't have grass and also water. Uh, there were places that didn't have water for their livestock, where normally you have a creek that runs with water, or you have a tank or a pond, depending on where you're from, what you call it, a tank or a pond, but a little reservoir with water for livestock, and those dried up, so people had to sell their livestock. And our long range forecast is not good. We're forecast to stay in this same weather pattern into next summer, and I've read a couple of forecasts that go even past that. So I was alive in the 50s, but I don't remember the drought of the 50s, but that's the record drought. That's the benchmark that everybody refers to still, is the drought of the 50s in Texas. And the people that were old enough to remember that drought and to live through that drought said that this past summer was a lot worse event than that. And that drought lasted for several years.
So tell us what your son is doing right now.
What we're doing out here right now is this land. We had this land worked. We had disc it and pulled a field cultivator through it, and we had fertilizer applied out here today, and now with this tool behind the tractor, we call it a hipper, he's pulling these rows up, and if you look down the rows, you might have to kind of focus down the rows to see, but it kind of pulls the dirt up into a little peak and makes a row. And when you come in to plant, well, you'll actually plant right down the top of the row, right down through here. And there's two reasons for putting these rows up around that. The purpose of making the rows is peaking that soil up like that. It makes like a sponge, and it holds that water in that row, so when you come in the springtime to plant, you just come in with another piece of equipment and maybe plant right into the row like that, or just knock just the top of the row off to get to that good moisture and put your seed in there. And then the other thing is, around here in this relatively flat country, and with some of the rainfall events that we get, which there's been times that we get 10 inches of rain in a day, well, then it just almost turns this country into a lake. And so having that row there, it gives you what we refer to as surface drainage. It'll have that plant up, just maybe that's the only thing that you can see sticking out of the water, but it keeps it out of the water and helps to keep from stressing the plant from too much water. The corn will be the first crop planted, and that, provided field conditions are right, around the middle of February. And the corn is a bigger seed, and so it's hardier, and the soil temperature can be a little cooler. The corn will germinate at 55-degree soil temperatures, and usually you can get those temperatures in the middle of February, and so that's the reason that's the first crop to plant. And that'll be followed in early March with MArlo, mid-March with rice, mid-April would be the cotton and the soybeans. So if everything lines up like you want it to, then you can do that. You can't go write it on your calendar and say, okay, March 15th we're planting rice. Because it might work or it might not. The field conditions would determine that.
Well, you could, but it may not work out.
Yeah, you can say you're going to do it, but when you wake up on the 15th and walk out, then you might change your mind. When the combine comes through and pulls the ear off, it breaks the top of the stalk off, but you still end up with a corn stalk out here that's 3 or 4 feet tall. And so then you come as close as you can behind the combines, depending on what other harvest work's going on and what the field conditions are like. But you'd like to come as close behind the combines as possible with the disc, and it kind of chops this residue up into smaller pieces. And then as you work the soil, well, it kind of covers this residue under the soil, and when you get moisture, well, then it starts the decomposition, the decaying process, and that's what you want it to do. And you'll have some of these pieces of stalk out here in the spring when you come to plant, but the big majority of it is decomposed and gone back into the soil. But with the tillage equipment, the disc, it chops it into smaller pieces, which makes it easier to turn back into dirt, as I say.
Hey. I'm Marie-Louise. How are you?
Good.
Nice to meet you. Well, so I get to take a ride? I'm so excited.
Screen and how it works.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Man, this isn't a tractor. This is a Coupe de Ville.
Very nice.
So approximately how long does it take to do a row?
With this, you get about 27, 30 acres an hour.
And you were saying that the computer actually, all you have to do is just turn around and it just takes you straight?
Yeah.
How's that GPS with it?
You set a line, however you want it, and whenever we get to the end, I'll turn the wheel and it'll shut off the steering and push a button over here, and once you get turned, it lines itself back up.
So how long did it used to take? This process today, I mean, it looks like you're about to do this whole, and this is just one for many, I know.
Yeah. I got started about 10:15 this morning at a field in Wadsworth, 70 acres there, and then moved over here and got, once you get all this done, it was about 90 acres, 160 acres, and didn't start till a little after 10. It's not too bad. It goes faster if you're on bigger fields with longer rows. Turning takes a long time. I don't know, whenever I started farming, I've always had the 12-row equipment. People used to farm with 6 and 8 row equipment, or 4 rows.
Is this a 12-row?
Putting up 12 rows at a time.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
38 feet.
Jeez. That's just amazing.
That's
So where are the video games? I mean, you know, come on, where's the fun? How'd you decide to go into farming?
Whenever I graduated college, I went to work in Houston for about a year selling stuff, and
That's enough to make you change your mind right there, right?
just kind of missed it. Came back and worked for my dad for a year, I guess. And so now it's supposed to steer itself.
Man, y'all are lucky I'm almost out of film. Just too much fun.
So this number tells you how far it's off.
So it'll bring it back and actually have that less loss? That's amazing.
This, they make it more accurate for this, but this one will keep it between 1 and 4 inches. Whenever I moved back, I decided that that's what I wanted to do. Found some land and got started.
Do you need a mentor like your dad to...
It helps, you know. But I use him and bunch of other older farmers around.
With all the new modern equipment,
He needs some help with that sometimes.
yeah.